Hiya, welcome back to my channel. I'm working with the Words by the Water Festival this week and I have got Cole Moreton.
Yes, that's right.
I'm going to be talking to him about his book, The Boy Who Gave His Heart Away. I listened to it on audiobook a long while ago, before I even knew that you were going to be at the festival. It actually made me sign up to the organ donor register. It was something I'd never really thought about before. Again, like you, it's this kind of, you don't want to think about dying.
No, who does?
No. Yeah, it's not an easy conversation to have, and it actually meant that my mother and I, we just said, what would you want in that situation? It's an important thing to do. It's a very complex and long story, but if you could...
I'll tell it to you. It's a true story, first of all. And it's two boys, one 15, one 16, one called Mark, one called Martin, one in Scotland, one in England. And one particular summer, they both fell ill for different reasons. And although they lived 300 miles apart, their lives were completely bound up in each other in the sense that one of them died and his heart was taken to the other one and put in the other one and gave him life. What was that? Is that your phone? Shocking.
Right, that won't happen again. Sorry.
Dear, dear. So one of the boys was saved by the other by getting his heart, so it's the story of how that happened. But then further to that, 12 years down the line, the mum of the boy who was lost met the boy who was saved, and she had this extraordinary moment where she reached out and put her hand on his chest, and she could feel in this boy who'd now become a man the heart of her own son that had been born inside her beating away inside somebody else. So it's about all of that. And
it's a very rare story, isn't it, that they actually met, because you hear transplant coordinators saying it can become an unhealthy thing for families to meet. But in this situation, I think it was very healing for both families.
Very healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to... Well, the system allows you to contact people through the hospital via a third party, and you only really get a first name and an age and where the person comes from. But by a series of extraordinary coincidences that you will have to read the book to find out, the two families did actually meet and get to know each other. And then there's this amazing bond between the two mums, Linda and Sue, which is unlike anything I've ever seen. And according to the rules, shouldn't really happen.
How many hours of interview did you end up doing?
Oh, crumbs, that's a good question. So initially, I was thinking about writing a book, and I interviewed Nigel and Sue, the parents of the boy who died, for 3 or 4 hours, and then did some interview on the phone with Linda. But we then turned it into a radio programme for Radio 4, which is, I think, what you heard, which is still on iPlayer, folks, so you can still hear it. And then we had, I would think, 22 hours of interviews, probably.
Gosh.
Had all those transcribed, and then they were the foundation for writing the book then. Because it's really important. It reads like a thriller. It should be really quick to read, but it's all true. Every single word of it is true.
And with the pace, were you worried that you were going to miss something out that was quite crucial? Or, like, in the detail, in the backstory? I really don't think you did. But were you very conscious of having to keep the pace, but also having to portray these real people's lives?
Yeah, and it's almost impossible, really. The only way you can do it is if the families are incredibly generous and don't mind endless stupid questions on the phone. You know, like, what were you wearing? What did you drink? And you're talking about the moment. Linda says her son is on the verge of death and needs a heart transplant, and she says, "Take my heart, take it out of me and give it to him." And so she's told me this big emotional story. But because I'm writing it, I also need to know, what were you wearing?
Yeah.
What did you eat? You know, who was standing where in the room? And so, it can get a bit exhausting for them. They were very, very generous. And so it's not only that it was an amazing story, it's not only that they allowed us to tell it, but then they also had the skills to tell it, and those are really rare combinations.
So you never met one of the boys. How different was it writing about him as opposed to the other boy which you did meet? Again, were you very conscious of the way that you were writing?
Actually, it was simpler, because really, rather than trying to describe him myself, I was getting the parents to describe him and then using those descriptions. They said, larger than life, bouncy, loved people, wanted to be a nurse. So that becomes the description of him for the book. So that part of it was quite easy, really, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It's more difficult to try and capture the essence of somebody who's still there in front of you.
Yeah, and I suppose you're getting that overview of somebody from another person, whereas it's...
Yeah, and I was also aware that I was telling the story on their behalf. It's not my story. I'm in it just a bit because at the end I have to explain how come I'm telling the story.
Yes.
But apart from that, I'm invisible. It's just their story, pretty much as they told it to me.
And you do forget that as you're reading it. It does feel like you're in the room with them. And in your talk, you felt like you were there. So you said in your talk that you were very squeamish of medical things. Would you consider covering something like this again? Or do you think that's it now, you've done it and...
I'm going to give you a very honest answer now. I was very lucky to pull it off. Right? I mean, to get the medical detail right, to get it accurate to what the families wanted, to make it fast for the reader and emotional, and also to have some kind of truth in it, all those things, very, very difficult to pull off all of that simultaneously. And I sort of think, well, I won't chance my arm with another story like that, right? We'll get away with it once. That's the oldest answer. But actually, the reality of it is, I will do another story based on this kind of structure, but it won't be about organ transplants. Because for one thing, I'm really pleased to say that mostly because of the radio. I think the Radio 4 series had an influence on some people who are making decisions about how the system works. So the organ donation system is changing dramatically, I think. And so the territory is changing. I just think, good, you got a win, great, move on.
So what are you working on at the minute?
I've got a novel coming out, how exciting, which comes out next year called The Lightkeeper, which is about somebody who lives in a semi-derelict lighthouse on the edge of Beachy Head, on the edge of a 500-foot sheer cliff drop. And again, that's a real place, it really exists. I live 10 minutes away from it.
Wow, really? Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
I'd really recommend that you do read this book and that you have the conversation with family members, because you don't know, tomorrow anything could happen. So it's worth it. Really is worth it, having that certainty that that is what that person would have wanted. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for being interviewed. I'll see you again next time. Bye.